let's watch the Cyberpunk guy's apology video. Okay, let's watch this guy. Let's watch. So, Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red. Apparently this is another apology video from them. Or another. This is an apology video from the Cyberpunk team. Because, you know, everything's broken. Let's watch. Our commitment to quality. 18 on trending.
Hey everyone, my name is Marcin Iwiński and I'm the co-founder of CD Projekt. When I started CD Projekt 25 years ago, one of its founding principles was honest and direct communication with gamers. When CD Projekt Red, the game development part of CD Projekt, was born, it added something important to that principle, the ambition to make the best games in the world. It became our mission and something that guided us up until now. Based on that legacy of genuine and honest communication, you trusted us.
I wish we kept doing it, but we just had to stop. It was a driving force for us to make quality video games up until now. We just couldn't do it anymore. Sorry.
Pre-ordered our game. And despite good reviews on PC, the console version of Cyberpunk 2077 did not meet the quality standard we wanted it to meet.
Despite good reviews on PC. Okay, let's get through it, buddy.
I and the entire leadership team are deeply sorry for this, and this video is me publicly owning up to that. Please don't fault any of our teams for what happened. They all are incredibly talented and hardworking. Myself and the board are the final decision makers, and it was our call to release the game. Although, believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this to happen. I assure you that we'll do our best to regain your trust. Now I'd like to tell you how the situation looked like from the inside. Cyberpunk 2077 is huge in scope. And I'm not only talking about quests or things you see at first glance. I'm talking about a multitude of custom objects, interacting systems, and mechanics. In the game, everything is not stretched out over flat terrain where we can make things less taxing hardware-wise, but condensed in one big city and in a relatively loading-free environment. On its own, this is a challenge, but we made it even more difficult for ourselves by wanting to make the game look epic on PCs and then adjusting it to consoles, especially old gens. That was our core assumption, and things did not look super difficult at first. We knew the hardware gap, yes, but ultimately, I think that time has proven that we've underestimated the task.
All right, I need to talk through this as I'm watching.
We had to constantly improve our in-game streaming system for all gen consoles.
All right, let's backtrack a little bit here.
Not only talking about quests or things to regain your trust. And the board are the final decision makers, and it was our call to release the game. Although, believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this to happen.
So, right here he said,
the final decision makers, and
don't
for what happened.
Yeah, don't blame the developers for what happened. They work very hard. It was our decision to release it. That's good that he did that. I'm glad that he was like, hey, it's our fuck up. It's not the actual developers. They did their best, but like we said, fuck it. Let's go. I don't know. It's not like I want to watch the whole thing, but it seems like he's just going to talk about the game after this, and I feel like that little sentence has like a lot to think about. So here's the issue with him saying this right now. Yeah, no shit, dumbass. You made a lot of poor decisions because stakeholders in the company forced you to put out the game before this holiday season. There was probably a lot of pressure from stakeholders in the company to get the game out for this holiday because it had been delayed multiple times. There was kind of some turn back onto the developers about the development of the game from the community in terms of people being like really mad. Every time Cyberpunk got delayed, it became a meme, right? It's a meme, oh, it's delayed, and all the fucking gamers rage. Right, and it's like, oh, okay, they delayed it again. Who fucking cares? Gamers care. Gamers care about it getting delayed. So, I mean, I don't think they buckled to the collapse, to the pressure from gamers. I think they buckled to the pressure from stakeholders who maybe those people are idiots and maybe they were like, I think you guys should release this before the gamers get mad. I think as a person who works in game development for a long time, like this man, he should know better that they'll wait. To be completely honest, they'll wait. They won't wait forever. I think if you delayed it 6 months, again, it's not really a huge deal. You know, it's not. It's really not. If your game gets pushed back 2-3 years, that's wild because then the gaming space looks different, right? Different games have come out that have done new and interesting things, and maybe your game isn't as good as it would have been if it came out 2 years before. So, okay, now it's all polished and it's good, but it's not really as exciting as it was. So I understand their want to get out while they still had the fire, while people were still really hungry for it. But ultimately, it obviously wasn't worth it, right? uh, their reputations in the shitter. Their developers had to crunch like, ungodly amounts. The stockholders are mad. They're literally getting sued by stakeholders in the United States. So it was the wrong call. And so it's nice now that he's saying, like, hey, don't blame the developers. It's on us. But it's kind of like, yeah, dude, it is on you. You know what I mean? Like, this apology now doesn't undo the damage to your employees by having to crunch a bunch and not being able to see their family members and, like kind of ruining their lives for the past several months as they were trying to get this game out. It doesn't fix the reputation to your this apology doesn't really help their reputation. You know what I mean? This is expected. If you didn't make this apology video, people would be like, I don't know, maybe it'd be the same. I don't feel any different about them now after seeing this. And this apology doesn't make the game better. The game is not better now that you said, like, oh, we're sorry, this doesn't live up to our standards. It's like, okay, it's nice that people can get a refund from all these retailers, but ultimately they made a very bad judgment call. They said, okay, well, it's good enough on PC and the old console versions, it's fine. Maybe he just way underestimated how many people own consoles. They've released games on consoles. They were always like a PC first development studio, CD Projekt. So it's weird that, like, he said, him saying, oh, the PC version was good, but darn it, those stupid console versions. And it's like, do you know how big the console market is? There's a lot more players that own consoles. There just are. So I don't know. This is such like a silly kind of thing. It's such a kind of like silly thing to also be like, oh man, if only it was better on the old gen consoles. It's like, wasn't that more of a concern? Also, the newer consoles, like when they first started making this game, they definitely knew that they were coming. And maybe they've been targeting that a little bit more with their release of the true, next gen version of the game or the upgrade, but I don't know. I don't know. Apologizing for after the fact, for treating, for doing crunch and releasing the game when you did, and all of the nightmare, all of the garbage after of like, can people return it? They can't return it, and they cause Sony a bunch of headaches. Like, think about the people who work at Sony that have to take calls for the customer support department for PlayStation, right? They definitely got in motherfucking ass ton of calls during this time. That's why they had to pull it from the PlayStation Store. Sony, it wasn't like Sony shook their hand and said, like, can we pull it from the store? And CD Projekt said, like, okay. Sony was like, fuck, pull it from the store. I guess we're giving people refunds because these assholes said we should have to give people refunds. I mean, Sony should have a refund policy, but they put them in this position, right? It's the most hyped game of the year. And they said, yeah, go ahead, get a return. Like, what? All right, let's keep watching this man talk about how the game is going to be so much better now.
Cyberpunk 2077 is huge in scope. And I'm not only talking about quests or things
I hate
you
this
see
excuse
at first
too. I'll let him finish it.
A multitude of custom big on PCs and then adjusting it to console, proven that we've underestimated the task. engine with what you see on screen. To constantly improve our in-game streaming system for all gen consoles. Streaming is responsible for feeding the engine with what you see on screen, as well as the game mechanics. And since the city is so packed and the disk bandwidth of all gens is what it is, it constantly challenged us. Every change and improvement needed to be tested, and as it turned out, our testing did not show a big part of the issues you experience while playing the game. As we got closer to the final release,
That's a lie.
we saw significant improvements each and every day, and we really believed we would deliver in the final day zero update.
All right, so these are
Now
lies. These are lies. These are lies. He's just lying now. So one, what he's doing in the beginning there is telling you, oh, this game is so complex and it's hard and it's really complicated. It's so dense. The city's so dense. There's so many systems going on that it's cool on PC because the PC's so good. We love our PC gamers. It's so strong. It's got it. But those old gen consoles are just not very good. So it's really hard to scale it back for them, even though you knew you were releasing this game. So he's blaming again the old gen consoles for like like how the game came out on them when it came out, but you knew you were releasing them on those consoles, so that's not really an excuse, right? Like what he's saying here is like, oh, we underestimated the big task between putting it out there. The Witcher 3 is on the Switch. What? The Witcher 3 is on the Switch, and I believe it was ported to another studio that, did that, but I don't know. Maybe you should have consulted with them closer, with those people. Because they put your game on the Switch. I'm pretty sure The Witcher 3 on the Switch was ported by a studio, right? Witcher 3 port studio. The studio that ported The Witcher 3 was bought by who? Panic Button was bought by THQ's parent company. Maybe that's why they couldn't help them that much. They've been bought. They got bought in early 2020. The Switcher 3, Panic Button. Yeah, porting studios are really good at what they do, and it's not easy. It's not like, I understand he's saying it's a big task. It was really hard to scale back here, but hey man, you decided to release the game on those platforms. If you couldn't do it, you shouldn't have. I don't know. That's just a very bad excuse. Because you committed to those platforms, so not developing for them as like a major part of your development pipeline. It must have been a major part of the development pipeline, but not focusing on it as much as they should have was a mistake, seemingly. Also, the end here, let's just replay that back because he's just kind of lying at a certain point.
Divulgence is what it is. It constantly challenged us. Every change and improvement needed to be tested, and as it turned out, our testing did not show a big part of the issues you experience while playing the game. As we got closer to the final release, we saw significant improvements each and every day, and we really believed we would deliver in the final day zero update.
Okay, that's a lie. So the first thing he says, we didn't see some of these problems when testing. We didn't see some of these problems that players are having on console during testing. That is a lie. I will reemphasize. That's a lie. That is a lie. Testers know. QA at studios is very good, especially at decent sized, studios. This is not a small, unheard of studio, CD Projekt. They've been around the block a few times. They've released many games at this point. They know what they're doing. Your testers, and I know it's a lie because I have had friends that work in QA at development studios. I have done QA for teams. I've done QA at my current company. QA knows about the problems. What happens is QA tells someone, hi, this is a problem. This is a problem. Hello, I'm telling you this is a problem. Then the person above them says, yeah, it's a problem, but we have to release this. Okay, it's bad though. This is a big problem. When you shoot a gun, the gun disappears. The gun disappears. What are we gonna do? You can't fix it, and when that happens, the game crashes. I'm making something up. This is an example. and, and then the person above them said, it's probably not the QA manager. It's probably someone from the producing arm, right? The person that's like above them trying to get the game to just release, right? They're like, yeah, but how often do people shoot in this game? They shoot a lot. The guns are like a major part of it. I don't think that's a big deal. I don't really think that's a big deal. Are you sure? People shoot guns in this video game all the time. And then the game comes out. That's what happens. So him saying they didn't see these problems in QA, he has to lie and say that. Because if he says we knew about the problems and couldn't fix them in time, because that's what happens. That's what always happens. The QA team saw these issues, told them about these issues. They ignored them and put the game out anyway. So that is a big, stupid, big, mean lie.
Improvements each and every day, and we really believed we would deliver in the final day zero update.
So he says that last part, we really thought we would deliver in this final day zero update. Oh, fuck. I can't believe we didn't get there, man. We tried so hard. And I'm sure they did. I'm sure the development team and the QA team worked really hard. And they're still working really hard because the game's still fucked. I'm sure they worked really hard to get that update out, right? They knew. When you're in these teams and when you're a part of these, when you're part of this development studio, you know. There's only so many hours of the day. Your boss comes to your desk and he's like, "Hey, Jimmy, here's like 15 problems. When you eat a banana peel in this section of the city, everything turns yellow. If you, I'm just making shit up. You know what I mean? He gives you like 10 tasks that you're like, these are problems, and they're like, yeah, it's all got to be fixed before release, and you're like, oh my god. And they're like, yeah, oh my god, I know, we gotta get it fixed. So you're gonna work overtime, right? Yeah. I've been working overtime for like the past 2 months. Great, because we have to get these fixed before the release. I know, it's crazy. Okay, bye. And then that guy goes home, and the dude who has to fix the problem works for like 13 hours that day. And he fixes like 2 of the problems because they're way more complex and complicated than, the management thinks, because they're dumb. Or they don't have experience, doing things. Or even if they do, it's because their boss tells them it doesn't matter. They have to get this stuff fixed before it comes out. Do as much as you can. That's generally speaking how it goes. The person who is managing them hands the problems over, right? They're going to be like, oh shit, got to fix all these problems. And then they're going to be like, there's literally no way on earth I can fix all these problems before release. And the guy's like, just do what you can. So they did what they could. And he said it. Do not blame the developers. Also, don't blame QA. He kind of threw shade at QA saying, oh, QA just didn't see this. Stupid QA. He didn't say stupid QA, but there's kind of a sentiment with gamers anyway that like QA is like lazy devs, and QA doesn't see problems, like especially the speedrunning community. They're like, oh, this is so broken, why didn't they see this? And chances are, most of the time, people know about these issues, but it's not a big enough issue, or they didn't have time to fix it, and the game got out. And if you're at work and you know that, like, let's say you work at a pizza place, right? I'm gonna really break this down. Let's say you work at a pizza place, and this is for like not cyberpunk scenario, but like let's say like the speedrunning community is like this kind of weird niche issue that the speedrunning community exploits, and then says like silly devs. All right, so I work at a pizza place, and I know that in the freezer there is like a floor tile that like if you step on it, you could like twist your ankle and fall, or like you could step. It's like loose, right? There's like a loose floor tile in the freezer, let's say. You're like, whatever. You're making minimum wage. You don't give a fuck. There's a loose tile in the freezer. One day you go in the freezer, you step on the loose tile, you twist your ankle, you fall, you hit your head, someone falls off the top thing, you break your arm. You're like, well, you're very hurt. And your boss like comes in, and they're like, what the fuck happened here? What happened? He's like, this, and you say to your boss, this stupid loose floor tile, which has been loose in the freezer forever, I slipped on it because it's loose. And I fell and I hit my head and this thing fell off the top shelf. The jar of pickles fell and it broke my arm. Call an ambulance. And your boss is like, you knew about the loose floor tile? And you're like, yeah, we all know about the loose floor tile. You just kind of avoid it because you're paying me $7.25 an hour. I don't give a fuck about the loose floor tile. And that's the same situation that happens with bugs. or with like minor things that then cause a big problem. So like with speedrunners, they find this really weird niche exploit but it could be entirely game breaking. But if it's such a weird niche thing, then during game development, I mean during the product development of any software, you have to prioritize big things that a lot of people are going to see, right? So the loose floor tile is not a big deal. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of running a pizza place. It's the same thing with like these bugs that people exploit. Anyway, that ties back to him saying like, oh, we didn't see it in QA, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's like bullshit. Like they knew, especially with how large and glaring the errors were. QA definitely knew, but I don't like him saying like, oh, we just didn't see it in QA because of the thing I just explained. Like there's already this kind of like idea with gamers and like the gaming community that like QA just doesn't know what they're doing. They're just missing stuff. And it's like, they do. They do know what they're doing. They're professionals. Like it's their job to find errors. It's almost like if you had an auditor of any workplace who's there every day looking at all the issues, and their only job is to look at issues, and you're like, oh man, why didn't you catch this? And they're like, no, I knew about it. It's just no one's fixed it yet. It's not usually QA's job to fix it. They find the issue, they report it, so somebody else fixes it, and then they test it again later, right? It's not that they don't know about it, it's that it hasn't gotten fixed yet. Because of priorities, because of lack of time, all that other stuff. Anyway, let's keep going.
Let's talk about the review process. We started sending our PC review keys in the first days of December.
Sure.
On launch day, December 10th, we hit the ground running with a really good start on PC. While not perfect, it's a version of Cyberpunk we are very proud of.
That's a buck wild claim, because I had heard things from many different media outlets that had played the PC version before release and after release and still had bugs. This idea that the PC version of the game is like perfect and there's no issues is a very interesting stretch of truth. I feel like he's using the PC community as kind of like a shield here because the version on PC works a lot better than the console version, but there's still major flaws with it. Some that I talked about in a previous time when I talked about Cyberpunk 2077, where you make choices and quests, and then later on in the game, it completely forgets those choices. So if you do or don't do something that's like a big kind of moral decision, maybe, it doesn't remember later on. That's kind of a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, that really affects the way that you're playing the game and like how the game responds to you as a player. So I think it's interesting that he keeps saying like, oh, the PC version was great. It's perfect. It's like, by a lot of accounts, it wasn't great. Like, it reviewed much better than the console version, but it wasn't perfect. It's still not perfect. There's still pretty big issues. I've played a little bit of Cyberpunk. I played like an hour and a half of Cyberpunk. I have a friend that has it on Steam. It did the Steam shirt thing. Anyway. So we fucking hold on. Anyway, I played like an hour. I just wanted to see my hours on Steam. I should play the music. Anyway, so I have a friend that had it on Steam. He let me Steam share it. So like when you sign in, you can share games with your friends on Steam if you didn't know. It's like Steam family sharing or some shit. I was like, I want to see if this is like, I want to see how it is on PC. So I played like an hour and a half of it, and I saw like 3 minor bugs. Like visual hiccups and just weird things. I saw a guy T-pose. There's like the scene where you come in the car, or you come in to steal the car, and you hear the cops show up, and then the cops arrive to stop you while there's this other guy stopping you. You know, the dude with the tattoos and piercings and shit. He comes over, he's like, hey dude, sorry that you're stealing the car. I'm gonna steal the car. And then the cops show up. That scene. For me, when he was showing up and talking to me, I heard cop sirens, and then I heard them like screaming, and the guys were like reacting to cops, and there was no cop cars. And after like a couple of seconds, cop cars just appeared and there was cops pointing guns at me. So there was no like driving up, getting out of the car. It's not a huge issue. It doesn't break the game. But that's a bug in the first like 30 minutes of gameplay. Right? It's like it's not nothing. It happened. So the idea that the PC version is like perfect is like a goof, and like I just know it's not accurate. Anyway.
At the same time, we're fighting for quality on old-gen consoles till the very last moment. And every extra...
Also calling it old gen, shut up. He's doing that to make it sound like it's not a big deal because it's old gen. The new consoles just came out and like no one can buy them. I got one. Most people can't. The old gen is the target. It's like where you could sell the most copies of your game. Calling it old gen is like fucking stupid, dude.
Of us working on the day zero update brought visible improvement. This is why we started sending console review keys on the 8th of December, which was later than we originally planned.
When did the game come out? The 10th? All right. I mean, I thought that's not as bad as I thought. I thought that was going to be the day it released. Boy, howdy. Boy, howdy. 2 days. They gave people a game that is the length of Cyberpunk 2077 to review 2 days on consoles. Oh, that's just mwah, chef's kiss.
This all happened while working from home with all the challenges resulting from the COVID-related restrictions. A lot of the dynamics we normally take for granted got lost over video calls or email, and we took that hit too. Now I'd like to tell you about our plans for the future and present a path for Cyberpunk 2077 on consoles and PC.
I can't wait.
We have already released 3 hotfixes improving the game, but that's just the beginning. Our ultimate goal is to fix the bugs and crashes gamers are experiencing across platforms. Please expect bigger and smaller patches on a regular basis. The first update will be dropping within 10 days, and it will be followed by another, more significant one in the following weeks. We will, of course, continue to work on the game in future updates and improvements beyond that. Our big plans for supporting Cyberpunk in the long term did not change. As for the free DLCs, our initial plan was to deliver them just after the release, much like we did with The Witcher 3. We decided to focus on the most important fixes and updates first, and we'll be...
This is what it looks like. This is a project manager's schedule. This is what a project manager puts out when he is doing a bad job. This is what a project manager puts out when a project is not under control and they're doing a very bad job. So my first impression of when he said, we're going to put a major patch out in the next 10 days was, that seems like a rough estimate. It's interesting that you don't have a date nailed down. And then he said the next patch, which will be more significant, sometime after that. So, patch 1.1, sometime soon, baby. It's going to be good. Patch 1.2, sometime after that. This says 2022. And this leads you to believe it will be a short amount of time. Right? Free next gen console update is somewhere over here. What if this line was just over here? What if this line was just way over here? This is like up 2 or 3 months. I mean, I know that it's, you know, they're probably hoping for a month maybe in between this and this. Maybe 10 days. Maybe somewhere in 10 days. But basically, I mean, I have problems with project managers at work. And this is what it looks like when your project manager isn't doing a great job. They don't really have a rough estimate on stuff because the reason the project manager can't give good dates is because there's way too much to do. There's way too much to do. Like right now, I got stuff going on at work. I got a lot on my plate, working a lot. Not as much as these guys, but I'm able to give rust estimates because there's too much. I couldn't calculate all the different issues I'm going to run into, all the different challenges I'm going to run into when making 20 changes to some software at a client. I just can't. There's too many different things up in the air. I could give you a rough idea of when the first 2 or 3 are going to happen. After that, I don't fucking know. And that's what's happening here, because there's too much. There's so much to fix that they're like, pretty soon, 10 days. 10 days for this first one. Then after that, like, a couple weeks. We'll see where it hits. And it's because there's so much to do. There's so much stuff to fix. Okay, free DLCs somewhere this year, and this is called trying to make the gamers happy. This is called trying to make them gamers super happy, and this is a free next-gen console update. Yeah, no shit. If you didn't do this either, people would be mad. Okay.
Be releasing the DLCs afterwards. Expect more information in the upcoming months.
Yeah.
For those of you playing on next-gen consoles in back compatibility, you can still expect the free next-gen update for Xbox Series consoles and PlayStation 5 arriving in 2021. We are aiming at the second half of the year. I'd like to end this video by assuring you that we treat this entire situation very seriously.
Of course you
and are
do.
working hard to make it right. The guiding principles of our company are still core to what we do. We still want to make amazing games and have an open communication with you, our players. For now, our immediate focus is to work hard on making sure you enjoy Cyberpunk 2077 regardless of platform. Beyond Cyberpunk, we have many plans for the future, which we'll share more about when we're ready. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.
Oh man, it has like a fun digital fade. Okay. That's nice. So, here's the thing. This man he's put on a very distressed face. Is he actually distressed? Possibly. He's probably sweating bullets, right? This is his livelihood too. He cares about it. It sucks for him. But at the end of the day, this was up to him and the other parts of the management team. It's not easy, and you can't just say bad management and that's the answer to all this stuff. But with this kind of stuff, that's what it comes down to. You have people at the top of the company who don't know what it's like or don't realize the incredible weight that they put on the people below them, and it ends up falling apart because people aren't robots. You can't just even if they were, at a certain point, your CPU is at 100%. You're going to overclock it. You can only overclock it so much, right? It's the same thing. Like, you can't get more out of a situation than what you're built for. Maybe they didn't staff high enough early enough onto the project. I'm sure that developing under the COVID-19 stuff at home was a nightmare. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it made their jobs harder. But then you should say, hey man, COVID really made stuff harder. He's saying the next gen thing they want done in the next 6 months. Dude, why didn't you just push the game out for like 5 or 6 months? I guess every time they pushed it back, it was they pushed it back like 3 times by like a few months or so. And I guess if they pushed it into 2021, people would have harangued them, but it can't have been as bad as what it is. I feel like if they had pushed out the release of this to, I don't know, February, March, right? April, we're still going to be in a pandemic. Shit's still going to be the same, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, I'm just thinking, like, it doesn't change the field of, like, where video games are in, like, 5 or 6 months. There's no game like Cyberpunk in terms of, like, the genre that it's going for and everything that is really going to blow the lid off. And, like, also it just seems like, even from people who played on PC and had a pretty good experience, it seems like a lot of systems in the game were cut out. Like, a lot of, like, game design heavy systems are missing because there's, like, not crunch to certain aspects of the game. There's not as much depth as people expected. They expected it to almost feel like Red Dead in terms of its depth and complexity of how things interact with one another, and it doesn't have that. Two people I have heard, because I haven't played more than a few hours, but that's what I've heard from several different people, from Jeff Gerstmann, a Giant Bomb, and some people from Polygon who I listen to on a podcast and stuff. Like, it's just not there. Some PC gamer people, some people really liked it, some other people didn't, and man, I feel bad. This man looks very upset. He looks very upset. But, like, come on, man. Alright, well, let's get out of here. I've been fucking yelling about this for 20 minutes. The Cyberpunk thing is just, to me, what it irks me a lot about the game industry as a whole. It really does irk me. because it is the people at the top that make things shittier for the people that actually make the games at the bottom. And, you know, they're making games because they love them. They love video games. That's why you get into it, right? You know, they made these people's lives hell. They made the people playing their game disappointed, or who were excited for it disappointed. And what are you left with? You know, what are you left with?